My name is Yumi Ridsdale. I am a registered Chinese medicine practitioner and acupuncturist in Ontario, Canada, and I am also a registered naturopathic practitioner. Today, I'd like to talk about what is stress. And so I'm going to talk about what is stress in Western medicine. Then I'm going to talk about what is stress in Eastern medicine. Then we will discuss how can we reduce stress. So let's start with how the Western medicine understands what is stress. Okay, so this is I'm a practitioner of the Chinese medicine. So this is going to be out of this book, What is Stress, written by Dr. Haruo Sugi, Dr. Sugi. This is published in Japan in 2008. And so I am explaining what is stress based on this book. Dr. Sugi graduated from the Medical School of University of Tokyo. He also studied and worked at the Columbia University in New York, then became a professor at Teikyo University in Tokyo in 1977. His father studied under Dr. Hans. Dr. Hans is the person that we're going to discuss in detail in this lecture. So his father studied under Dr. Hans Selye, who developed the concept of the stress. So he's kind of the father of the concept of stress. Okay, I really enjoyed this book. I wish this book is published in English. It was very yeah, it was excellent book. So let's start with the Dr. Hans Selye. So and his journey. Janos, I think it's pronounced as Janos, Hugo Bruno Hans Selye. Dr. Selye was born in 1907, died in 1982. He was a pioneering Hungarian Canadian endocrinologist who conducted important scientific work on the hypothetical non-specific response of an organism to stressors. So non-specific responses are the key for his work. So here's a picture of Dr. Seriese with his rat. The way so he studied what is stress by giving stressor to rats and observe the responses from the rats, and then I can't really imagine how gloomy, dark that experiment it was for the rat. They basically get tortured, and then the doctor was observing what was the response, like physical response to those stressors. However, his work was really important. It really opened another door in medical history, so it was important. And then, I just want to rats. Oh my god, what you guys have to go through, but anyway, this is what it is. Uh, so his question. Let's start with his question. 1925, in a clinical diagnostic class, he observed that patients with various chronic illnesses, like tuberculosis or the cancers, appear to display a common set of symptoms. But his teachers did not seem to be interested in these non-specific but common symptoms. So those symptoms are the rough-looking white tongue, exhaustion, emaciation due to the gastrointestinal impairment, fever, general body pain or body ache. Also, they could have a liver and spleen enlargement, inflammation of tonsils, and skin rashes. But the teachers did not want to even care for these symptoms, which seems to be big symptoms, right? Like, the patients have a body pain and body ache, and then there's exhaustion, emaciations, and then organ dysfunction. But this is not what teachers are concerned. Why is that? So we're talking about, this is 1925, right? So back then, the medical field was dominated with this newly introduced and developed bacteriology. So the bacteria is, this is a new finding. This is like, every disease are caused by the external factors, bacteria. So before that was like, they didn't know why human gets sick. Was it a curse, or like, was it like some like spiritual punishment? Like, why people get sick? And then at the end of the 19th centuries, um Dr. Pasteur, he found out about this things called the bacteria, which he can grow on a controlled environment. And Dr. Pasteur, Pierre Pasteur, Pasteur, I think, French doctor, he came up with the idea of the vaccination, right? He's a father of the bacteriology. So this is in 1925, like a early beginning of the 20th century. This bacteriology, the concept of the bacteria um, causing sickness to the people, is new and hot, right? They thought that every single disease and illnesses were caused by the bacteria. And there's a different kind of bacteria. They knew that, right? So that each kind of the bacteria causes a specific set of the symptoms. Doctors need to look for those specific symptoms in patients to determine which bacteria has caused this disease. So I don't know, maybe if they're having a white foam coming out of the mouth with violent tendencies, and wild animal like behavior, maybe they could have a rabies. Like, they do. These are the specific symptoms. But prior to those specific symptoms, patients often have like a body ache, exhaustion, emaciations, organ dysfunction. Those are the common symptoms of any bacteria or any diseases. And then doctors couldn't do anything about it because these non-specific symptoms doesn't tell which kind of the bacteria were causing this specific disease, right? So doctors usually wait till specific symptoms that tie to the each bacteria that they knew back then are presented, then they will do something about it. So that's the way that the medical field were going for, right? That's the new direction. Like, there's a light in the, they see the light in this new field. Oops. So here's a Dr. Pierre Pasteur. Um, so he's a father of the bacteriology, right? He thought this bacteria was causing the diseases. But by the end of the time he passed, at the 1895, um, he said to his friend, Bechamp was right. The microbe is nothing. The terrain is everything. So what he meant here is the bacteria. Sure, it's a factor, but it's not a 100% factor. It's nothing, as long as the terrain, so the body that bacteria is on, it's really up to the body that is bacteria grows on, right? That's terrain. Its terrain is everything. um it's like people can drink the same wine, and one person can be drunk, one person can be okay, one person can have a headache, one person can have a puking, like, nauseous, and then like really bad reaction from the alcohol. And then there's somebody who can just walk home fine. It's not a wine, it's about the body that consumed the wine, reacted to this substances, and that's a that's the problem, right? That's what he meant. It's not a microbe, it's not a substances, it's not a bacteria, it's a terrain. But that was, he figured this out at the end of his life. But so before that, the medical field was still on this, like, let's figure out this bacteria, this microbe, like, this like mysterious, these things that you can't see with your naked eyes. Like, you have to use this new invention of the microscope, and then like this is like, where the medical field was, it was a trend. um but Dr. Selye, he thought the diseases are not always caused by the bacteria. He proved eventually, he scientifically, he proved that the diseases can happen without external factors such as bacteria. Doctors wouldn't diagnose or treat patient back then. So the doctors, not Dr. Seria, like his teachers, other doctors wouldn't diagnose or treat any symptom patients without the specific symptoms that indicates which bacteria had caused this illness. So they would wait till these set specific symptoms are presented. But Dr. Serie, interested to the non-specific yet common symptoms of illnesses that was presented prior to the specific symptoms, um, and that opened the door for the new era. So this was a rediscovery of internal factors can cause illness. Well, I said it's rediscovery because it was, I think people knew about it before, and then that idea that you can just get sick was shunted when the idea of the microbe and bacteria came. It wasn't the scientific for many doctors to think that you can just get sick. It has to come from somewhere, they thought, right? Um, Before that was like more like in a medieval way, like, you get sick because it's a God's will, or you get sick because you did something that needs to be punished. That, instead of the doctors, you need a priest to um, heal it, right? And then the science came in, and the science said, no, it is a bacteria that causes the disease. But then Dr. Serious thought, no, without the bacteria and without the sins, people can get sick. And this is, I think, it was a rediscovery because people knew it. Back then, ancient people knew about it. Like, for sure, Chinese people knew about that, right? So that was Dr. Seria was the first person who was interested in this. So let's call this stress. So the term stress has nothing to do with physical response from the stress like we use now. Like, we use now the stress as, like, it could be um, anything that gives us like res- body, psychological, emotional response, right? So it could be work stress, it could be family stress, it could be financial stress, it could be um, anything that make us about it. It's a stress, like, but we back then, like, there's no such a definition of the stress. It was this physics terminology from the physics. So the word had long been in use in physics to refer to the internal distribution of a force exerted on the material body resulting in strain. So it was a terminology for the physics. Then Dr. Selye used the word to explain about something that disturbed the body balance. Physiological stress represents a wide range of physical responses that occur as a direct effect of a stressor causing an upset in the homeostasis of the body, right? Homeostasis is the golden balance of the body when everything is perfect. Like, your physical body is perfect, your mental emotional body is perfect, you have a perfect mind, perfect stamina, organ function is perfect. When everything is perfect, it is called homeostasis. And stress is something to that disturb this perfect balance, right? So upon immediate disruption of the either psychological or physical equilibrium, The body respond by stimulating the nerves, endocrine, and immune system. So these are the response from the stress. And Dr. Seriese studied what kind of the bodily response is given by torturing rats. And then he found there are three stages. There alarm phase, resistance phase, and exhaustion phase. So before that, let's talk about the common three symptoms when the stress is given to body. There are three areas that stress affects any animal. Any animal. One is enlargement of the adrenal glands. One is a shrink of lymphatic tissues, and then the other is a gastrointestinal ulcer, or the thinning the lining of the gastrointestinal, like inside internal lining, right? So that when the alarm phase during the alarm phase is when the stress is given, like, it's right there, somebody's yelling at me, somebody honked at me, I got like unexpected bills. Then what happened when the human animal face stressors such as extreme temperature, physical emotional challenge or torture, injury, phone bill, Christmas, same physical shift occurs within the body, right? The one we just talked about, adrenal glands enlargement, lymphatic tissue gets shrunk, and then the gastrointestinal lining gets thinned. Um, these are the body's effort to resist against the stressors, asking the body to take a restand to recover. So this is a friendly warning from the body. This is it may suck, but this is a friendly warning. The body is saying like, hey, you're not supposed to be in these situations. Like, you should get away from, like, what's giving you the stress. And then when the human animal survives the alarm phase, your boss or your foreman that's yelling at you gone, like, you survived the moment, congratulations, now your body needs to recover. So this is a resistance phase, right? So when a human animal survives the alarm phase of the stress, the body will naturally shift to the resistance phase. So adjust the body to the homeostasis state. Recovery time is needed here. You need to, so this is where you need to relax and then chill. This depends on the severity of the stressors, the quantity and quality of the rest the body is given. Back back then, if the soldier goes fight and then survives the war, he'll rest at home, right? If the animal is chased by bigger animal, and then if he survived the run, he'll hide and he rejuvenate, he recuperate. He needs to, like, any animal, any human needs to rest after stressful moment. If you talk about the nervous system, you probably have heard a sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system, right? Sympathetic nervous system is the one that alarming phase, like, it'll get you run, it'll get you high, it'll get you fight. Um, it'll go go go, right? Go 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 is like a sympathetic nervous system. Once you survive the moment, the nervous system switch to the parasympathetic nervous system where you will allow to digest and rest. And then it has to be even, 50% sympathetic, 50% parasympathetic nervous system. You can't just live with the parasympathetic nervous system because you can't just live on the couch doing nothing. Then you get sluggish, you feel heavy, and a different kind of the diseases would occur. You need to have a stimulation, like you need to go out and then be chased for, like, a little bit. you can't just sit on the couch, right? So the ideally sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system should be activated 50-50, but it gets programmed. So the alarm phase and the resistance phase go side, 50-50. That'd be great. Um, but it but if the alarm phase is the stress is too large to be recuperated overnight, and that's a problem. You shouldn't be given the stress that you cannot recover with one night's sleep. You know what I mean? So this is the balance that you need to make. But what if your stress is far larger than the amount of the rest that you can give yourself? Then you go to the exhaustion phase. Exhaustion phase is where, if the human animal is exposed to the severe stressors throughout the resistance phase, death can occur. There's only so much energy that human animal has to resist against the stressors are limited. After the energy runs out, death can happen very quickly. I'm from Japan, so you may have heard the word karoshi, Karoushi, karoshi. Karoshi only is. I think it happens everywhere, but only Japan gave a word about it. Karoshi is the death from overwork. When you work too hard for the company, day and night, every day, 7 days, 24 hours, 7 days a week. Karoshi is the death because you worked too hard, and then it happens in Japan, but I'm sure it happens everywhere. Only Japan has a word for it because I guess it happens often enough to give a word. This is an exhaustion phase, right? Like, the person didn't work too hard, under stress, didn't give himself enough rest, and then body and then mind just gives up. It is a natural consequences. So this is the three phases. You give a stress, you recover from it. If you don't recover from it, exhaustion phase is a death. Now let's talk about what actually happening in the body. So let's start with a hormonal response of the stress. When the body is exposed to stressors, the pituitary gland release the adrenocorticotropic hormones, which is ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. ACTH then travels to the adrenal glands, triggering the release of corticoid hormones. Here's adrenal glands get enlarged. Remember, like one of the three symptoms of the stress is enlargement of the adrenal gland. It happens here. These corticoid hormones can affect the lymphatic tissues, potentially causing a reducing in their size. This is the second symptom of the stress, reduction or shrunk of the lymphatic tissue. It happens because the corticoid hormone is released from the enlarged adrenal gland. So this happens one after another, always together. This may lead to a weakening of the immune system. It's important to note that a lymph nodes plays a crucial role in the immune function. So you 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 may lose the battle because your lymphatic system is shrunk. Your immune system is not working at the optimum state, right? Because you're stressed. Simply because you're stressed, you easily get sick, and then it is far more difficult to get over the sickness than the usual because you're sick. So when the stress is high, pituitary gland is like a oh, stress is given, release the adrenocorticotropic hormones, which led to the adrenal glands enlargement, and then it goes to the adrenal cortex, releasing a glucocorticoid hormone, which arrives at the lymphatic system that causes shrinking or decreasing of the lymphocytes. You get sick. Easy, huh? Glucocorticoid as a stress hormone, glucocorticoid GCS are the stress hormones involved in the regulation of glucose, which is a sugar, glucose homeostasis. So that your body should have a balanced glucose balance, like how much body sugar, the blood sugar it has. You can't have no blood sugar because that's the energy that it's your fuel, it's your gasoline. But if you have too much, right, too much blood sugar, everybody knows it's not a good idea. Also, it leads to the adipocyte development. So the storage system of energy in fat form are will be imbalanced. So it will produce more sugar, and then storage system is not working, functioning well. So this lead to the development of the insulin resistance. So the muscle, fat, and liver do not respond to the insulin hormones anymore, because the balance of the adipocyte, this storage system is not working, and there's too much blood sugars, because you're stressed out, which leads to the obesity and diabetes. Why sugar is released? Because the body, when they're facing the stress, you have to fight. You have to run. When the enemy, when the bear is approaching, what you need is either fight or run. You know what I mean? So the body release the sugar because that's the easy fuel that you can do things. You can run. You can hide. You can fight. But too much sugar when you're not using it, right? Because like we don't use it, we don't fight in this day and these ages. It's not like we fight, physical fight. So when we're exposed to the stress, we just sit and then tolerate through it, right? So the sugar that's released so you can fight is not going to be used, so it only gets stored, and then you become fat, and then like you become diabetic. Okay, so then we also would like to talk about inflammatory response. So glucocorticoid as an anti-inflammatory hormone, actually. So glucocorticoid that's released from the adrenal glands will reach to lymphatic system, diminish the lymphocytes, and immune system gets weaker. We talked about that. Inflammation is a defense mechanism of the body to deal with the physical stressors. Inflammation is there for you actually from the your immune system. So when the immune system is weak, you actually have a less inflammation. Localize and eliminate injurious agent and remove damaged tissue components. So that's the inflammation, right? So that's the redness and then swelling. It's the redness and swelling is the battle that your body is fighting against this localized enemy in your body. And then the swelling, redness, swelling, burning sensation are there to actually help you, although it is giving you pain and suffering. So when you are under the stress and when your immune system is low, actually you have a less inflammation. So you can see the just rat leg, right? When the rat is in alarm phase, you can see there's no swelling, but when the rat is relaxed and no stress phase, there is this when the immune system is working functioning properly, there is actual inflammation swelling because inflammation is there to protect the body. So this is another things about the what stress does to the body. Interesting, yeah. And then the third symptom of the stress, if you remember, was the thinning of the gastrointestinal lining. This is done through the automatic nervous system response. So stress can affect the automatic nervous system, which controls basic physiological mechanisms such as appetite, digestion, sleep, etc. Stress decreases mucosa resistance from toxic radicals. Also, stress results in the decrease of the gastric renal, um, leading to the atrophy of the gastric mucosa, make the stomach more prone to acid, pepsin, ulceration, and hyperacid secretion. So you have a thin lining, atrophy of the gastric mucosa, and then the stomach produce more acid, pepsin, so which leads to the eventually ulceration. But before that, it will give you this stomach ache, um, maybe perhaps nausea when you're hungry, um, severe thirst, unquenchable thirst that might occur before the stomach ulcers happen. So abnormal heart function can happen, um, because with because you have impaired digestion, right? Like you have a thin lining with more acid, you probably have acid reflux at this point, and then that means that your digestion is impaired. If you also take the anti-acid reflux medication, your digestion is further impaired because anti-acid medication neutralize this acid to digest food. The body gives more acid because you can't digest the food with the normal amount of the acid, so the body gives more acid. But because you have a thin lining, so you have a burning sensation with the acid reflux. And then if you take acid reflux medication, it neutralizes the acid that the body produces to digest food. So actually, anti-acid medication impairs the ability to digest and absorb the nutrition. So you cannot produce enough blood and body fluid. So it will, of course, impairs the heart function, and then it causes a palpitation, tachycardia, irregular heartbeats, heart attack, right? And cardiovascular issues such as poor circulation, the varicose veins will occur. Not enough blood, not enough circulations. And then digestive issues, of course, indigestion, gastric ulcer, gastritis, um, severe acid reflux. Acid reflux after eating would be like, just a poor digestion, but the acid reflux when you're not, when you're not like full of the food in the stomach, or when there's a empty stomach giving acid reflux, that's now like a really dry stomach. That's like really, you really have to look into it. Like, you should worry about that, right? Or nighttime acid reflux, like, you wake up and then like you have like a severe acid reflux in the nighttime, then like, that's a really dry stomach. There's not enough um stomach function is happening there. Then immune system dysfunction, prone to infectious disease, and then you can get cancers. If you already watched my another video about the two reasons why cancer occurs, if you watch the video, it explains why, how the stress can lead into the cancer. So I think stress is the number one cause. Like, yes, North American people most likely eat like, improper food. I don't know many North American people who eats well. So that can lead to the cancer. But the stress also, on top of that, I think stress is the number one cause of the cancer. Weaken immune system to give a viruses chances to alter DNA of the cell. And then cancer is basically is like mutated cells as well. So there's not enough immune system to fight against the cancer cells. Every single person on the earth develops the cancer cells every day. I do, you do, but we have a strong immune system, so the cancer, it doesn't let the cancer cells to grow into the cancer tumor. But if you have a weak immune system because you're under stress, then it will allow the allow the cancer cells to grow into the tumor. That's what the Dr. Pierre Pasteur said. It's not about the microbe. It's not about the cancer cells, the terrain. The body is everything. It's your body that lets the cancer cells to grow or not. Now, then emotional issues, of course, appetite loss, anorexia, mood disorders, depressions. If you're stressed out, you either actually eat lose an appetite, or some people stress eat. So because you have it's comfort food, right? Like, it makes your brain like comfortable, but like we talked about, when you're under the stress, your digestion is weak. You don't have a enough sit lining of the stomach with like a hyper acid, and then like impaired absorption and breaking of the food. uh, so you either way, you lose the appetite or you eat too much because you're stressed out. It's not going to be good for you because you don't have a proper stomach function to break down the food. And then brain function is impaired due to the poor blood circulation. You don't have enough blood and enough body fluid. uh, your brain can't function well, right? Then depression can happen, like anorexia can happen, anxiety can happen, a lot of the emotional issues can happen. Like, we know that the stress lead to those emotional issues. This is how actually physiological step by step how the stress can lead into those physiological and psychological diseases. Scary. So these are understanding of what stress does to the body, right? It affects in three areas: adrenal gland, and lymphatic system, immune system, and digestive system. Um, what you need, it has a three stages: alarming stages, and resistance stages, and exhaustion stages, right? Like when you're alarming, your stress is given, and if you survive, you need to have a relaxation time so you can recover, you can recuperate. And if you don't have the resistance phase, it'll go to the exhaustion stage, and then the end result is death. It really is. So stress is a silent killer. I think of most of my patients, their imbalance of the body, as far as I can see, is caused by the stress. Not taking a proper rest, not eating enough food to recuperate. So I hope this helps you to understand how what is actually stress due to the body. We use the word stress every day, but it's hard to explain how stress affects to the body, right? um, so this is how I hope this helps you to understand how the stress can really really damage your body. And then in my next video, we'll talk about how the Eastern medicine understands the stress, and then we'll talk about how we can decrease the stress. Okay, thank you for listening. Bye bye.